Today is Chol Hamoed Pesach 2024. It's been a challenging one. Anyway, I thought I'd start making some videos about me and my family. My family's from my father's family, Rabbi David Chaim. His father's name was Rabbi Yaakov Nisim. Eventually, they added the name Chai, Rabbi Yaakov Nisim Chai, because when he was in his 40s, he had a heart attack. When he was a rabbi in a little island off Colombia called Margarita. You can look it up. So he was Rabbi David Chaim ben Rabbi Yaakov Nisim Chai. And they were from the Spanish zone of Morocco. Morocco was split into French and Spanish zones. My father was born in Morocco in 1948, Spanish Morocco, so he spoke a lot of languages. He always had a lot of languages. He ended up speaking 8 languages. So on the street, he spoke a form of Arabic and or Spanish. They called it Española. At home, they spoke this Ladino, which is like a Jewish Arabic. They call it Españolit. And that's what he spoke with his mom, whose name was Julie Zohar, was actually from Spain, a real Sephardi Jew from Spain. She was religious but a little more modern, and my grandfather Rabbi Yaakov Nisim was a yeshiva guy. He was a mohel and a shochet and a paitan and a rabbi, and he founded 2 shuls in Beit Shemesh, and he probably did 10,000 britot in Beit Shemesh. He was very well known. Now he has a street called Hamor Yaakov named after him in Beit Shemesh. You can go see. I think you were there when you were small. And my father, when he was 8, they made Aliyah. It wasn't easy. They had to, I think the bad guys were trying to get, so to speak, people who were after my grandfather. So they got on a boat to France, and from there another boat, and eventually made Aliyah and went to Beit Shemesh, where my father wanted to go. Everybody wanted to go. So my father told me that when they got off the boat, everyone was looking to him for direction. Should we go to this place called Beit Shemesh or some other places, Nahariya? These were Ayarot Pituach. In the 50s, Israel was poor. So my father said, let's go to Beit Shemesh. So like thousands of people, the story is, went to Beit Shemesh. When they got there, it was dirt, mud. There was no Aliyah. Then there was no the second new Beit Shemesh you see today, Aliyat Beit Shemesh. So he was there. They had literally had tin huts, no running water or plumbing, and they built it. My grandfather Rabbi Yaakov founded 2 shuls there. One is called the Zohar, and the other one is Shevet Achim. I gave one of his eulogies when I was in 1997 when he died. My father asked me to speak. I spoke before the whole thing. I made a whole drasha. It was very, very beautifully. I was 21 years old. I spoke before the whole shul. I ended it with Ma Tovu Ohalecha Yaakov Mishkanotecha Yisrael. He raised a lot of people, my grandfather. He brought a lot of people close to Yahadut. He was very well known. His father was Rabbi David El Charar. The original family name is El Charar, which means the free. As far as I know, that means free from taxes. One of his sisters, Mari, I believe she was a seamstress for the king of Morocco, so they had a lot of power. They had a lot of, not a power. And he was a Rav of a city. I'm blanking out now. My memory lately is not great. I think they were from Casablanca and Rabat. And a little tiny town called Dimnat. You can look it up. It's in the middle of the desert in Africa, Dimnat. But he ended up, Rabbi David El Charar ended up being the rabbi and the shochet and the mohel and the paitan in the city of Larache, which is in the coast of Morocco. And his wife had a big giant grocery shop, so they did very well and did a lot of good work. And unfortunately, Rabbi David El Charar, I think he had 8 kids. My grandfather was one of them, Rabbi Yaakov, and Doda Mari, and Doda Pachi, and Doda Sarah. And most of them came to Israel, and one of them went to France. Oh yeah, you know the story. One of them stayed there, married or kidnapped, whatever, with an Arab guy. So 6 of them came to Israel. One uncle, his name was Pepe. These are all nicknames, right? And one uncle, his name was, oh my, come on, Mandy. Pepe and, I forgot, I'm sorry. Chedba will know. And they lived all over the place. Some of the family went to Nahariya, a lot to Beit Shemesh, a lot to Be'er Sheva. And so I have 2nd and 3rd cousins all over Israel. You don't know them. One of them is called Hananya Cohen. It's Pachi's kid. And Gabi, you don't know him. He's a little older than me. Not the Gabi from a different Gabi. And not Gabi. And a lot of people. And they lived. Now his mother, Rabbi David's mother, is actually from Israel, from Palestine, British Mandatory Palestine. So her name was Rachel, and she actually spoke British English. When I was a boy, my father took me to Beersheba. She lived with Mari, I think, Doda Mari. So her name was great-grandmother Abuela. I think they called her Abuela Rachel. And I went to see her when I was a boy, like 12, 13, 14, when we first tried to make Aliyah in 1988. And I went there, and I was an American kid. And I spoke to her, and she spoke British English. So she was living in mandatory British Palestine, and she heard about this shidduch in Morocco, and she went and went all the way across Africa to Morocco to meet my great grandfather Rabbi David, and they married. And eventually she came home decades later. Amazing story, right? Actually, just to know family history a little bit, so Abuela, grandmother Rachel, had a sister named Sima, who I met once or twice when I was a boy. And these two sisters married two brothers. So Rachel married Rabbi David, and her sister Sima married Rabbi David's brother. His name was Elchanan, I think, or Yochanan, Elchanan. And once when I was a boy, I went to hang out with my Saba Rabbi Yaakov, and we went to Beersheba, and I met them. They were already very old already. This is like, I met them in the 1980s. And it was nice meeting people who were your forebears. And before that, I don't know how many generations. My father thinks my family was there from the time of Beit HaMikdash, the first Beit HaMikdash even. Some of them are up from the Atlas Mountains, he told me. So they have special manginot and nusach in Morocco, very strong. My father always emphasized that, Moroccans are not Syrians, and they're not Persians. We have real Spanish, like real Sephardi minhagim. I don't think I gave you all of them. I wish I wasn't as, remember Saba David was very boisterous and loud and magnetic and cheerful, and he himself was a great chazan. So I'm not a great chazan, but you know some of the tunes. Sukkah ve'lulav, all these tunes. Beviluyah, there are many tunes for Purim. A lot of minhagim, very strong Jewish community. Morocco was a community of kehilot. Of yeshivot, so they were learned, Rabat, and all that very big Talmidei Chachamim. And unfortunately, the story goes that when my great-grandfather, Rabbi David, took my grandfather, Saba Yaakov, to yeshiva in a place called Tetwan. Remember, David, I told you about that in Star Wars? Tatooine was named after Tetwan. There's a big yeshiva there, Yeshiva of Tetwan. My grandfather was 15. My great-grandfather, Rabbi David, went home, and unfortunately, a bus collided with a train, and he was killed. And the story has it that, like a few minutes beforehand, he changed seats with someone else. I think his name was Rav Salim. And the guy who switched seats survived. And I think he's in Miami later on. He was a rabbi of the Cuban Sephardi Shul. My father was assistant rabbi. It was Temple Moses in Miami. I learned a lot of interesting tunes there, like a special Cuban Lechadodi, which I never forget. And so Rabbi David was... Saba Yaakov at 15 was orphaned from his father, but he survived. He's strong. Saba Yaakov was a sickly boy, very thin, but he was strong, very strong-natured. And he himself married Julie, Zohar, and then he became a rabbi in Morocco. And then in 1957, they made Aliyah. They weren't 12 kids yet. I think there were 8 kids then. So my father, 6 girls, and 1 boy. And then they went to Beit Shemesh, had the rest of the kids, my 12 uncles and aunts. Of which one of them, Eli, died when he was 33, misken, alav shalom, and my aunt Ruti died, around 17 years ago, I think. When she was a girl, she had radiation done for acne or something, and she lost her hair, and she later developed a meningioma, and misken killed her. It's very sad. So they made Aliyah, and they became good Jews, and they followed Sephardi traditions. And we can talk about that more next video a little bit.